We begin today on Daf Ayin Dalid Amud Aleph, right at the beginning at the Mishnah. The Mishnah continues the halachas of a husband nullifying the Nedarim of his wife. So over here, it's going to speak about how this applies regarding a Yavam and a Yavama before she actually marries him. When you have a woman that's waiting, she's anticipating for the Yibum. So of course the mitzvah of Yibum is when her husband passed away without children and the brother has to marry her. So at that point, she's connected to him because she can't marry anyone else without chalitza, and or he the Yibum. The mitzvah is that he's miyabim her, but she's anticipating, she's waiting for this Yibum. So she's what?
Like an oris.
Well, let's see what the Mishnah says. Bein liyavam echad, bein lishnei yavamin. Whether we're talking about a case where this yavama is waiting for one yavam, or this yavama is waiting for two yavamin, right? So, meaning there's one brother here, or there's two brothers. Rabbi Eliezer oimer yafer. So says Rabbi Eliezer that they can come and nullify the Nedarim. Just like the husband can nullify the Nedarim, they can nullify the Nedarim. Now I'm saying they, but the question is who? Which one of them? So we'll see in the Gemara. Let's say you have two brothers over here, so the Gemara will explain. And also, what does the Rabbi Eliezer mean? Rabbi Eliezer means that they could be made for the Neder themselves or together with the father. Like it is by the case of Arusa. Right? There's a difference between Edison and Isum, which we learned before here. If it's the stage of marriage of Edison, it's together with the father. If it's the stage of marriage of Nisuin, so then it's the husband alone. Right, so that's the question over here. Rabbi Yeshua sagt the Mishnah weiter, the second opinion here. Rabbi Yeshua says le'echot. That's only if there's one Yavam, so then that Yavam could nullify the Nedarim of this Yavama. Avoloi l'shnayim, but not if there's two. If there's two, then they can't. The Gemara will explain this as well. Rabbi Kiva Omer, a third opinion there, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Kiva says, loi le'echad v'loi l'shnayim. That a Yavam in this time period, when there's no Yibum yet, she's anticipating, she's waiting for the Yibum, whether there's one brother, whether there's two brothers, it makes no difference. You cannot this Yavam cannot nullify the Nedarim of the Yavama. Dr. Mishnah, here is the discussion between Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Kiva. So, Rabbi Eliezer said the following logic for his opinion. If, when it comes to a wife, that he acquired himself. In other words, a person is Makadesh Isha, the Edison, he gave her a ring and he's Makadesh her. So what's the halacha? He could nullify her Nedarim. True, not alone, together with the father, but he has the power to make for the Nedarim. So Isha shehiknu leiman hashamayim. Here, this Yavama that the Eibishter gives him or acquires to him from heaven. So most definitely this should be even more stronger. The Eibishter gives this to you, so this Yavam should have the power to be made for her Nedarim. That is the Kavachayim. So therefore he says, Rabbi Eliezer says that this is always the case, whether there's one brother, whether two brothers. Amalei Rabbi Kiva. So to this Kavachayim, Rabbi Kiva responds and says, no, there's no raya. If you say by an Isha that the husband, even in the stage of Edison, could be made for Nedarim, Shakano Hula Atzmai, so he acquires his wife for himself, Shein Lacherim Barishus, and there's nobody else that has any Rishus in her, any possession over her. Once she's married to him, even just Edison, she's an Eshes Ish, no one else has any connection to her. So therefore, he could be made for her Nedarim, together with the father. But over here, when you're talking about this Yavama that's waiting for Yibum, even though Taked Eibishter gave it to you, but the case over here is that there's another brother. So either you're going to do Yibum or another brother is going to do Yibum. It's not just you that could do the Yibum. So how could you go ahead and be made for the Neder? This was what Rabbi Kiva responded to Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Yeshua came in and he said to Rabbi Akiva, Devarecha, your response to Rabbi Eliezer is B'shnei Yavamin. You're explaining why in the case of two Yavamin, it doesn't make sense to say that one of them should be able to be made for the Neder. Why not? Because how do you know which one? How do you know which one? The Gemara is going to say the Svara of Ein Breda. But before that, over here, there's two people that have a Rishus over her. You can't say that it's just you that has the Rishus over here. But the question is, why do you disagree to my opinion? I say that when there's one yavam, so now this is a isha shehiknu leim min hashamayim, and it's just me, just this one brother. Amaloi, so Rabbi Akiva responded, even in this case, ein hayivame gemura liyabim. The yivama is not; it's not finished. There's no real connection. This is not really his wife yet in any way. Kishem sha'arusa gemura leisha, just like an arusa, which is completed, meaning an arusa is a real marriage. She's an eishes ish, even though it's only the first stage of marriage, but it's already a marriage, and therefore the husband could be made for the nedarim together with the husband. Over here, though, the yavam and the yavama in this stage of shemeres yavam, which is only anticipating the yavam, it's not gemura. There's no marriage yet. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says, even if there's just one brother, it doesn't matter. The husband or this yavam, he's not a husband yet, can't do the nullification of these nedarim. Okay, so the Gemara here will explain the pshat of the three opinions. Zok the Gemara. Bishloimer Rabbi Akiva. We can understand the pshat in Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Sovar ein zike. Rabbi Akiva holds ein zike. That, what's the meaning of ein zike? No? So if anyone remembers, we learned this in the Gemara in Yavamas. What does the idea of ein zike mean? At this time period. So this Yavama is definitely connected to the Yavam. Either chalitza or yibum. Right? But nevertheless, ein zike means that level of connection is not similar in any way to the connection that there is between husband and wife. Right? So therefore, whether the first stage of marriage, edison, whether nisuin, you don't have that level of connection in the time period of the shemeres yavam, which is just anticipating. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says, doesn't matter, even if it's just one brother, this brother doesn't have the power to nullify the neder of this shemeres yavam. Rabbi Yeshua Sava, we could also understand what Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is. He holds yesh zika, that no, in this time period when you're anticipating the yivum, that is a strong connection, and the connection is so strong that it's somewhat like already a marriage. It's like your wife, like Edison maybe, or maybe even like Nisuin. So therefore, this yavam could nullify the nedarim. However, our question is, according to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer's chiddush was, even when there's two brothers, that is an option, that one of them should do yibum, even then, one of them could go ahead and be made for the neder, or maybe both. But the question is, my time, what's the reason? Rabbi Eliezer says that they can go and be made for her neder. Even if he holds like Rabbi Yeshua that this is considered to be somewhat like a marriage already. But the problem is, ein breire. Ein breire means we don't know who's the one that's going to actually go ahead and marry her. So usually the concept of ein breire means that since now I don't know who's the one that's going to marry her, even if later one of them ends up marrying her, ends up being miyabim her, but we don't say that it clarifies retroactively that he was really the one that was destined to marry her from the beginning. That's usually what ein breire means. But over here, it actually means even stronger. As the Ram brings over here, because of the lashon of the pasuk, that it says, Isha yifirano, Isha yikimano, Isha yifirano, that it's her husband that has the power to nullify the nedarim. We understand from that pasuk that it has to be only someone that we know for sure is the husband. It can't be someone that now, at the time when he wants to be made for the neder, it's not clear that he is the husband. So therefore, whether in other places in Shas you hold yesh breire or ein breire, it doesn't matter. Over here, this is not a suffix. Over here, the Torah says, unless it's clear that he's the husband, so then he for sure can't be made for the neder. So therefore, what's the explanation for Rabbi Eliezer? How could these two brothers be made for the neder? Right. So therefore, what that means is, even if let's say both brothers. So you know what? Since it's unclear who's going to be the one to marry her, let both of them be made for the neder. Maybe then it should work. If it's me, it's you, so we both be made for the neder. But it still doesn't work because the issue over here is not because it's a suffix. So now if they both do it, so therefore you cover the suffix. That's not the point. The point is the Torah says that only if you're a vadai husband, it's clear you are the husband, you have the power. If you're not a vadai husband, you don't have that power. So how could Rabbi Eliezer say that there's a concept of the yavam nullifying the neder in this case when there's two brothers?
And Rabbi Yeshua?
No, Rabbi Yeshua is talking about one brother. Only by one brother. One brother. He's the only one that could do the mitzvah. That's it.
Yeah, but he gives chalitza too. So
no. No, but he holds yesh zika though. He holds yesh zika, even though you have the option of chalitza. But in this time period, the chalitza undoes a somewhat of a marriage. Before you do chalitza, this is considered to be already somewhat of a marriage. So the Gemara explains that there's another detail in the Pshat in the Mishnah. Amar Rabami, so Rabami says, when the Mishnah here speaks about this Shemeres Yavam, we're not just simply speaking about a Yavam that did not do anything for his Yavam yet, and she's just anticipating Yibum. But Kagain She'asaba Maimer. She's anticipating Yibum, but he already gave her a Kedushin Midrabanan. That's what Maimer means. If you remember, we learned in the Gemara in Yevamis that Minatayra, the Yibum, the marriage of a Yavam and a Yavam is only Bia, the marital relations. But Midrabanan, they said that Kesef and Shtar, that works by a regular Isha, over here, Midrabanan, that will take effect. And that's what we're talking about, Asaba Maimer. Okay, so therefore there's already a stronger connection. Midrabanan, this takes effect. And now the Gemara brings that actually, according to Rabbi Eliezer, this mimer has an effect not only with the Rabbanon, but it has effect minat Torah, and therefore he can be made for the neder. As the Gemara explains, Rabbi Eliezer Savar, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is Beis Shammai, like Beis Shammai. And this is a unique opinion, only Beis Shammai holds this. The Amri Beis Shammai said, mimer kind of kinyan gomer. The power of mimer is actually not with the Rabbanon. The power of mimer is minat Torah, even though the mitzvah of Yibum is the marital relations. But nevertheless, Beis Shammai says that even by Yibum, Kesef and Shtar is Kaina, Kinyan Gomer. So therefore she becomes like his wife already. So that's why, what's Rabbi Eliezer saying? That one Yavam, even though there were two brothers, that one Yavam that did the Maimer, so now he's like a wife. So therefore she's like a wife, so he can be made for the Neder. Okay, and as we'll see soon, the Gemara at this point is thinking that means that he can be made for the Neder alone. She's like fully married to him. He can be made for the Neder alone without the participation of the father. So what does Rabbi Yeshua say to this? Rabbi Yeshua, Oy Malach or Omalach, Rabbi Yeshua will tell you that Hanimili b'chad Yavam. That's all true if you're speaking about that there's only one Yavam and that Yavam did Maimer. So then it becomes like a wife. Avol b'shnei Yavamin loy. But if there's a second brother here, even though one brother did Maimer and the other brother did not, we do not apply this. The fact that one brother did Maimer does not give him the power exclusively to be made for the Neder. Why not? So here the Gemara will explain, even according to Beis Shammai that says that Maimer minat Torah creates a Kinyan Gomer, but nevertheless it doesn't completely rule out the power of the other brother that's here. The other brother still could tamper with this relationship. And how is that? As the Gemara explains here. Is there any case that we would say, if the brother here still has the power to come, what could the brother still do after Maimer? If Beis Shammai says that the Maimer is a Kinyan Gomer, what could the brother do? So the halacha is, even according to Beis Shammai, that the brother could still come and osar aleha, and he could ask her now, this brother that did Maimer, to be married to her. How? Bibiyah. If the other brother will go and have marital relations with her. So the first brother did Maimer, which creates a Kinyan Gomer, but now the second brother will come and have Biyah with her. Or if the second brother goes and gives her a get, so that means, what happens then? Then the first brother can't live with her anymore. It takes away the possibility of the one that did Maimer to live with her. So what does that mean? That even though Beis Shammai said that it's Kaina Kinyan Gomer and it's like his wife, and therefore the first brother, he would have to give her only a get if he wants to divorce her, doesn't have to give her chalitza anymore. But nevertheless, at the same time, Beis Shammai agrees that another brother could still tamper with this connection between them. He can go and have biyah with her or give her a get, and that will stop your relation with her. And you're giving the power to the brother that did Maimer to go and nullify her Nedarim if the second brother that's still here still has a power. That's what Yeshua says. Yeah, if the second one goes ahead and gives a get to her, so then it undoes this Maimer, it blocks the Maimer of the first one. Yeah, that's what Beis Shammai says. Correct?
It can't be
yeah. So, because even according to Beis Shammai, the Ikka mitzvah is the Yibum. And a Chanami Beis Shammai says that the Maimer is Kaina Kinyan Gomer Minat Torah, but it's still not complete. It still allows the other brother to tamper with this, either to do biyah himself, that's the real mitzvah, or to give a get, and then that will take away your koyach of your relationship.
Get means klitz over here?
No, get means a get. Yeah, we learned about this in the Gemara in Yevamis Barichis. There's a concept of yesh get acha maimer, even according to Beis Shammai, that says that the maimer is very strong, but nevertheless, the get of another brother afterwards will ruin that maimer. So therefore, even after maimer, this brother that did the Maimer cannot be made for the Nedarim. Rabbi Akiva Savar. Now Rabbi Akiva's opinion is, going back to what we said before, Ein Zika. Rabbi Akiva says even if one brother did Maimer, it doesn't matter. This is still a situation where Minat Torah, this doesn't take effect, and therefore she's anticipating for Yibum, and there's no Zika, there's no connection like husband and wife, so he can't nullify the Nedarim. Okay, so now the Gemara has a question on this husband. This is Rab Ami's explanation. Fragt the Gemara, but Rabbi Lazar, that's the way to be guided here, not Rabbi Eliezer. This is Rabbi Lazar, which is an Amayra. Rabbi Lazar has a different understanding of what Beishamai said. Rabbi Lazar said, Maimer le Beishamai. What did Beishamai mean when he said that Maimer works minatayra? Right. So before, the way it was quoted, which is really Rab Ami's opinion and understanding of what Beishamai said, Beishamai holds that Maimer is very, very powerful. Maimer is basically just like Yibum, which is Bia. Same thing. The only difference is, could another brother still interfere? But whether you do Yibum, which is the Bia, or you do Maimer, either way, now you would have to give her a get to divorce her, and no chalitza is necessary anymore. Maimer is like a full kinyan. That's according to Rab Ami. But Rabbi Lazar said differently. Rabbi Lazar said, even though Beishamai is telling you that Maimer has a strong power, then it's kind of minatayre, but that's only for one aspect. The Amma, Maimer le Beishamai, so he said that according to Beishamai, this that we say that Maimer is kaina, ain't kaina ella. What Beishamai meant to say is, the kinyan of Maimer is only for one aspect. And what is that? Litchais b'tzara. To push off another tzara from getting the yibum of this brother. What does this mean? What's this case of a tzara? So the case of the tzara is, if you have two sisters that were up for yibum, you can't do yibum for two sisters, right? You can't marry two sisters as wives. So what happens in such a case? In other words, if you had two brothers that passed away, and these two brothers were married to two sisters, and now the third brother has to do yibum for two sisters. So what happens if he first did maimer for one of these sisters, and now the other sister is up for yibum? Could you be miyabim the second sister? No, of course not. It's a sister, right? So what Beishamai is saying is, once you married this first sister with maimer, it's considered to be a real marriage. So this is your wife. Once it's your wife, so then the second sister, there's no mitzvah of Yibum b'chlal. If you remember, when it comes to the mitzvah of Yibum, if this woman that's up for Yibum is a erve, if there's a isser, in this case it's a chais ishta, it's a sister of your wife that you're already married to, so then there's no mitzvah of Yibum b'chlal for the second, for the sister. So what Beishamai was saying is that the maimer that you and Mekadosh Isha is powerful enough that it totally rejects the second sister. That's all the kinyan helps for. But according to Rabbi Lazar, Beishamai will agree that even after you do maimer, it's not really kainim and atayra that now she's like a regular wife and you could only give her a get like a regular wife. You still have to give her chalitza as well, even after the maimer. It's not really a regular wife. So Beishamai never said that maimer has the effect that she should be like a regular wife. So according to this understanding of Beishamai's opinion, Samayik Meima, how are we going to explain our Mishnah over here? What's the explanation of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion over here in the Mishnah that one brother, when there's two brothers, one amongst two brothers, that he could nullify his wife's Nedarim? You can't answer me that because he did maimer. Even according to Beishamai, the effect of the maimer doesn't make her like a wife, because you still will have to do chalitza for her. So what's the explanation of the Mishnah? So the Gemara gives a different explanation according to this. So I'll have to tell you, what are we speaking about? Different thing. Yes, there were two brothers over here, and this woman was stuck, and she didn't get any yibum from any of these brothers. So finally, she brought one of the brothers to the bezdin, probably the older one, which has the mitzvah of yibum. She brought him to the bezdin and says, "No, so let's move on over here." And what happened? And so bezdin paskin that he has to give her the yibum. And then, okay, bezdin paskin, then he runs away. He doesn't fulfill his obligation. So what happens then? At that point, once Bezin paskin that he had to marry her, so now he's going to be obligated to feed her. And once he's obligated to feed her, this brings back a rule that we already mentioned earlier in the Gemara. At this point, then the Nedarim that she makes, he has the power to nullify them. Why? What's the logic? We quoted already before. Rav Pinchas explained the name of Rava. What's the reason why the wife's Nedarim, a husband, could nullify? The Omar, he said, because she's being supported by her husband, so therefore when she makes her Nedarim, she's making the Nedarim only thinking that I'll get the consent of my husband that supports me. So over here, from this stage, since there was already a psak of Bezdin and the Yavam is supporting her, that's what the Mishnah meant, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, even if there's two brothers, the one that's supporting her, it could nullify the Nedarim. So again, we're not just talking stam about a Shemeres Yavam, but a Shemeres Yavam with this psak of Bezdin. Okay, the Gemara.
He doesn't want to, but
it doesn't matter though. But that's the status though. Yeah, it's a deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't want to marry her, but I want to control you to
well, okay. Sagt the Gemara Tanan. So let's look in the lashon of the Mishnah whether the pshat that Rab Ami said before. The Gemara is going back to the pshat that Rab Ami said that the Mishnah is talking about when the Yavam, one of the brothers, did maimer. Does that fit into the lashon of the Mishnah? So what did the Mishnah say? Amar Rabbi Eliezer said a kal v'chaymer. What was this kal v'chaymer? If a person acquires a wife himself, even only Edison, so he has the power to be made for the Nedarim, even if it's together with the father. So then he said, by a case of Yibum, when this is a wife that the Eibusha gives him from heaven, definitely the husband or the Yavam should have the power to nullify a Nedarim. That was what Rabbi Eliezer said. But now the question is, if like Rab Ami said, that the case of our Mishnah is that he did maimer, kana la'atzmai, you're saying that over here we're talking about a case that sorry, this is the way you read it. Kana la'atzmayu. So he did maimer. If he did maimer, so he acquired this wife for himself. You can't say that this is a wife that he got from heaven. He did maimer, so he already was makadisher, and it takes effect according to Beis Shammai Minatayra. So it doesn't fit into the words of the Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, the pshat is shekana la'atzmai al yidei shemayim. True, he did maimer, but nevertheless, it is by first having the connection through heaven. First comes the connection of the Yibum. The Eibusha gave him the connection to this wife without him doing anything. And then he went and did maimer. So it is based on a unique connection that comes min hashamayim. So therefore, the kal v'chaymer of Rabbi Eliezer still stands, and that's what Rabbi Eliezer meant. Now the Gemara says, based on this pshat of Rav Ami, we can resolve a question that Rab asked. Sagt the Gemara, Tifshay de boy Rabbe, we should be able to resolve a question Rabbe asked from the pshat that Rab Ami said there. What was the question of Rab Ami? Maimer le Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai's chiddush was that maimer has, which is when a yavam is mekadosh to yavama with kesef or star, it has a power minatayra. So his question was, Edison Isa? Is this that she becomes just like married, the first stage of marriage, or perhaps what Beis Shammai meant even more, that the koyach of maimer is so powerful that it's mamish like nisuin? That was the shaila Rabbi asked. Says the Gemara, Tifshoid, we should be able to resolve from our Gemara the nisuin that the power of maimer is that it's like a full, complete marriage. Right, because at this soon is complete marriage. He's living with her, is complete marriage. And at this point, the Gemara is understanding that when Rabbi Eliezer says in the Mishnah that the Yavam could be made for the Neder, and why? The reason is because, like Rabbi Ami explained, because this Yavam did Maimer, that means he could be made for the Neder alone, without the participation of the father. So that why could he do it alone without the participation of the father? Because it's considered to be already like full marriage. And the Gemara explains, because if it would only be like the first stage of marriage, so that's the Mishnah we had right in the beginning of this Perek, if there's only the first stage of marriage, so the father and the husband could be made for the Nedarim alone. So over here we can resolve the Iboy of Rabbe that it's a full, just the Maimer alone is considered to be a full marriage. So the Rishayim actually point out that our Gemara is actually a very big chiddush, because if you look in the Gemara in Yevamos, when it discusses this question that Rabbi asked, whether the Maimer is like Edison or like Nisuin, he doesn't really mean that the Maimer itself should be mamish like a full marriage. The Gemara there explains that the question is, when you do Maimer, so for the full marriage you need chuppah, for the marriage to be complete by the Yibum, or not chuppah. Chuppah means some kind of a yichud. Or bia, dafke bia completes the marriage. That was the question of Rabbah. But here, the Gemara actually has a svara to say that the maimer itself is mamish considered to be like a full nisuin, without anything afterwards. And that's why the husband could be made for the Nedarim alone. That's the way the Gemara understands this now. So the Gemara answers, no, that's not the pshat in our Mishnah. We could say what our Mishnah meant is, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, ma yafer. When Rabbi Eliezer said in the Mishnah that Yavam could be made for the neder, it didn't mean alone. It meant yafer b'shutfis. He can be made for the neder in participation together with the father. But because it's like not a full marriage, even according to Beis Shammai. We learned in a Braise, like the Pshat that Rab Ami says, that when our Mishnah is discussing this whole case of Shemeres Yavam, it doesn't just simply mean anticipating, but it means after the Yavam already did Maimer. So we see this here in the Braise. So this is a little bit of a long Braise, and it goes into the next Amud. I hope we have time. We can go learn the whole thing until the Mishnah. Let's see. Okay, if not, we'll have to stop in the middle of here and continue. So the Braise says as follows. Here it brings in the beginning the same as the Mishnah, but then it's a little bit different. So shemeres yavam, when you have a shemeres yavam, just like the Mishnah said. So the Rabbi Eliezer, the first opinion is ben yavam echad, ben shnei yavamin. Whether there's one brother, whether there's two brothers, Rabbi Eliezer me yafer. Rabbi Eliezer says that the yavam could be made for the neder. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer le'echad v'loy l'shnayim. Rabbi Yeshua says only if there's one brother, not if there's two brothers, like we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, Rabbi Kiva says loy le'echad v'loy l'shnayim. Whether there's one brother, whether there's two brothers, it doesn't make any difference. Yibum, the yavam cannot do the hafaris nedarim. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, and this Rabbi Eliezer says a kal v'chaymer, and this kal v'chaymer is a bit different than what it said in our Mishnah. Uma im isha she'ein lechelik ba atchalei tavil rishusai. If when it comes to a wife that he marries her, he has no connection to her, he has nothing to do with her until he marries her. Even Edison. Tavil rishusai means she comes into his possession. That refers to Edison. Before she lives with him, tavil rishusai means she's in his possession. Right? Edison. She's still living in her father's house, but so before the first stage of marriage, she has nothing to do with him. Once he marries her, even the first stage of marriage, nigmar alai. So now he's connected to her, that he has the power to be made for an nedarim. True, together with the father, but he could be made for an nedarim. If that's true by a regular wife, so Isha, when it comes here to this wife, to this shemeres yavam, sheyesh loy chelek at shaloi tavil rishusai, he already has a connection to her even before he marries her, because right away when his brother died, so there's the mitzvah of yibum there, there's already a connection right over there. So mishabas l'rishusai ein edin shetigmaloi. So when she comes into his rishus, what does comes into his rishus mean? That means maimer. If he was mekadesher with maimer, for sure that he should have now the power to be made for an nedarim, because he already had a connection to her even before the maimer. So there's a stronger connection that he has to her. Okay, this is similar to what our Mishnah said, but our Mishnah just used the expression "hiknu loy min hashamayim." He already from heaven has a connection to her, but over here uses this way of putting it. Amalei Rabbi Kiva, to that Rabbi Kiva responded and said, "No, I can refute your kal v'chaymer. When it comes to a wife that a person acquires himself, true, you're right, that he has no connection to her before he marries her. But just like he has no connection to her before he marries her, so too nobody else has any connection to her either. She's neutral. No one has any connection to her. Now you come and marry her. When it comes to this wife that the Eibusher gives you from heaven, so true, you have already a connection to her before Maimer, before you are Mekadesher, but Shekeshem sheyesh lo yimachelik, before you married her, just like you had a connection to her, kach yesh lacherem chelik ba. There's another brother here, so there's other people that also had a connection to her. So she's not neutral, you have a connection to her, and others. Another brother has a connection to her. So when you marry her, who says that gives you the power to be made for her neder? Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua now says to Rabbi Akiva, similar to what we had in the Mishnah, Akiva, dvarecha b'shnei yivamin. You're responding to Rabbi Eliezer regarding his opinion when it comes to two yivamin. Ma tameshav al yavam echad. What are you going to answer when there's only one brother? Amalei, so Rabbi Akiva answered him, Klum chalaknu al yavam echad v'shnei yivamin. Is there any distinction that we should make whether there's one brother or two brothers? Others are greatest here a little bit clearer. The lashon of the Gemara, kum chilaknu. Can we make any difference? Can we make any distinction between whether there's one brother or two brothers? And also he says, ben sha'asa ba maimer, ben sha'loyasa ba maimer. Whether he was mekadesher with maimer, whether he was not mekadesher with maimer, is there any distinction? There's no distinction. And he explains why not. Ukishar devarim kein nedarim. Just like regarding other matters, she's not considered to be a wife yet, and the Gemara will soon explain what that means regarding other matters. She's not considered to be a wife. So too regarding the Nedarim, she's not considered to be a wife yet, and he cannot be made for the neder. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. So after Rabbi Kiva gave this answer to Rabbi Yeshua, B'losh Nazeh Amar Ben Azai was there, and he heard this answer. So Ben Azai said, "Chaval alecha Ben Azai." Such a shad. How do I say chaval? How do they have it over there? Such a pity on Ben Azai, shleishimashtas Rabbi Kiva, that you weren't here to learn from Rabbi Kiva to have this answer that was such a strong answer to what Rabbi Yeshua said. Okay, I think let's just see another few minutes. We'll see the conclusion of the Inyan until the Mishnah over here. So now the Gemara explains here. If you look in this brayso, you clearly see in this brayso, like the pshat of Rab Ami, that it's talking about not just a regular Shemeres Yavam, but a Shemeres Yavam with Maimer. It's like the Gemara, so my Tanya Kvasei Rabami, where do you see in this Braise a Raya, a proof for Rabbi Ami's Pshat? So the Gemara says, Midiktani, so you can bring the Raya, first of all, from what's clear in the Sefer, in the words of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva said, Ben Sha'asa Ba Maimer, Ben Shaloi Asa Ba Maimer. So he's clearly speaking about Yibum in a case where there was Maimer. That's why Rabbi Kiva is saying that. Inami, the Gemara says, you could even see it before from the words of Rabbi Eliezer and the Reisha. Mireisha, Diktani, because the Reisha in the Mishnah says, Mishanichnas al Rishusai. Actually, we did not have Mishanichnas, it said Mishabas Rishusai. When she came to his Rishus, Nigmir aloi. So then she becomes a wife. And then Rabbi Eliezer there continued and says the same thing by Yibum. He says the same thing, that Mishabas l'Rishusay Nigmar. What's that Mishabas l'Rishusay? Mishabas l'Rishusay means the Maimer. That's what it is. So we clearly see in this Braise that we're not just talking about a regular Yavama that's anticipating Yibum, but we're talking about with Maimer. Vidulei Kaddish, if he wasn't Mekadisher with Maimer, my Nigmarule. What does this mean that he now brought her into his Rishos and that she becomes his wife? So Tivshet Minei, so it's clear from this Braise, like Rab Ami said, Kisha'asa ba Maimer, that it's talking about when they did Maimer. Now the Gemara explains what Rabbi Kiva meant. Mai ukishar dvarim kein nedarim. What did Rabbi Kiva mean to say that just like regarding other matters she's not his wife yet, so too for nedarim she's not his wife? Diktani, Rabbi Kiva said. Amar Rava said, Hachi Katani. This is what Rabbi Kiva meant to say. Wouldn't you admit to me that she's not his wife? Because she'en chayav and skila can naira meirasa. By a naira meirasa, once she's married, even just the first stage of marriage, she's an eishes ish. If someone else has a relationship with her, there's a chiyuv of skila. In the case of Yibum, when you did not marry her yet, even if you did maimer, and someone else goes and has a relationship with her, she's not a wife yet. There's no chiyuv of skila for that. So that shows you that she's really not a wife yet. So therefore I apply the same thing for Nedarim, that she's really not a wife yet. Now the Gemara says this is exactly what our Mishnah was saying. Amar Avashi Masnisa Nami Deike. This is what our Mishnah was saying. Ein Yavama Gemura leisha. That this Yavama, in this point, even after Maimer, she's not yet really a wife. Kishem Sha'arusa Gemura leisha. Just like by Edison is a wife. That's an Eishes Ish. V'haraya, there you chayiv skill if someone else has a relation. But over here not. So therefore for Nedarim as well, she's not a wife yet.